Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another lesson. In this video, we will be painting this ocean seascape here. And I look forward to painting these lessons with you because in the process of teaching you, I'm also learning as well. Haven't done many of these seascapes, so I'm trying to just apply what I do know about painting in acrylic to just another landscape. So if I don't get bogged down with the subject and I use my principle of painting, which is to look for shapes, colors, and sort of just work with that, then I too will be able to paint this just like you. So I shouldn't be intimidated by this because flowers are far trickier to do. So I am just putting out a little bit of this gesso, and what I'm using is this Liquitex acrylic medium gesso. And I'm gonna try, today I'm trying something also new, which is kind of funny. I'm just doing all kinds of new things here. This is acrylic paper that I bought from Michael's, and I'll put a link to it in the description. So I'm always trying to get people to paint. So one of the things that kind of can hold you back as a beginner is painting on canvases can be intimidating. So just getting a canvas and feeling like you have to do it perfect because you've spent all this money on a canvas. So that can be a hold up. So always try to think of ways I can get people to paint that, is less intimidating. So if you just think, oh, I'm just painting on some paper, and you can buy a whole booklet of this stuff for not too much from Michael's. It's not a big investment, not a big risk. So I'm just putting a little layer of gesso on top of the paper. I'm sure it's already has some sort of gesso sprayed on in the factory, but like I say, I'm new to this, so I'm just a little bit maybe extra paranoid that the paper won't be enough with that one layer of kind of quickly sprayed on gesso. So I'm just going and putting a little layer of this on. So I'll let that dry, and then I will come back and continue with this lesson. So for the sky, I'm just going to use a little bit of cobalt blue and some white. And I'm just going to put that layer in there. Actually, with that little layer of gesso on the paper, the paint moves nice and smooth. Now I'm going to use a little bit of this phthalo green. And this is just a real simple kind of painting with the phthalo green. We're just going to come back to make it a little darker. We can layer it in. Already has that real ocean glow to it. And I'm going to just mark out where the kind of the ocean part stops and then the beach carries on. And then there's a couple kind of breakers here, one up here and one kind of down here, real big waves that come across. And we'll mix up something for where the water hits the beach. Mix up sort of a gray color for that, where you can see those waves kind of go through to the beach. It's a real kind of grayish, greeny color. So I just had, my brush was still kind of dirty. I just added some white and this transparent brown oxide. And then we have the beach. So I'll just use some of this right into the paper there. Use some of that. I think it's raw umber I put out there. So now you have kind of the basic setup for everything. Now we can go and add a little bit more of a light to that sky. So add a little bit of white to your cobalt blue mixture and kind of give it a little bit of that middle area has sort of that real light blue look just in the middle there. And this is some tape here, so it's kind of messy looking, but later I'm going to come back in and fix that up. And then I'm going to switch now to a little different brush. Where is it hiding here? So I got these brushes from Michael's. They're super inexpensive, but I just got one of these little kind of, it's like a round tip. It says it's a Zen brush. Number 4, so nothing fancy. It's just something you can kind of draw when I'm looking at this here, all these different waves, I'm just gonna kind of dab in where they're going using some of this white, and it has a little bit of the blue in there, but I'm not too worried right now about the color. So I'm just gonna kind of use my brush because there's no straight lines in the wave. So I'm just kind of going along, putting in the kind of where the top of the wave is. There's all these little marks, kind of wobbly, and it kind of comes down here. Sort of a bunch of these waves curling down, and then the next big wave that comes onto the beach kind of comes across this gray area here, and that's kind of coming down right here. And then that kind of goes all the way along the shore here. I'm just kind of doodling where the basic wave and kind of the movement of the brush strokes to show the waves go. And then you've got some of that light from the sky, so I'm just kind of using some of that cobalt blue in between there. And now you can start kind of filling in the waves. So I'm going to just get a little bit of that phthalo green blue shade and sort of start filling in sort of where that wave comes down. Here it gets kind of light. And then there's a lot of that foam from the wave there. And getting that kind of bring some of that in there. And then what I notice in the wave, and if you're watching and you're one of my Patreon members, you know that I always give you the reference photo with each lesson. So I'm looking at the reference photo, and so I'm just sort of working with this. But if you're watching this preview on YouTube, it won't have the reference photo. So just sign up on my Patreon channel and you can get everything you need. So now I'm taking some cerulean blue and mixing in some of that phthalo, and now I can sort of blend in to the wave. It's a little bit of that darker color that kind of comes underneath. And because I put on such thick paint, and also that original layer of gesso that I put on the piece of paper is really helping to just give it a little more drying time, because it's not just absorbing right away into the paper. It's kind of sitting on top a little, which is good, because also with acrylic paint, the more it absorbs in, the darker it dries, so you kind of have a more accurate color to right away. So I'm just working with that, and it's really, I'm looking at my reference, and what I'm doing is I'm just looking at it as shapes and colors the way I would anything. So I'm looking at that darker shape here, connecting to kind of this shape, and then some real more vivid color in here where there's more light coming through that wave there. So I'm sort of just trying to build up that. And I'm going with like everything, you can make your brush stroke to go with the shape of the wave as well. So I'm kind of curving it a bit. Gives it that look of the wave curling. And I really like how impressionistic it looks. There's a lot of what I've known of realism. Excuse me, I have allergies. Sorry about that. Allergy season here in Arizona. Seems like every time I go to paint or do a lesson, it gets worse. So this wave up in the front here has got a lot of this green color to it. This one back here had a lot more blue. So I'm just kind of mixing in a little more of that phthalo green into this wave here. And then I'm picking up a little, as it goes along, it gets a little more of this cerulean blue. So this is sort of a new area for me as well, painting waves and everything, but it's really just something I get a lot of requests to do, and I thought it's good for me to try new things. I really obviously paint a lot of birds and whatnot, but it's also really good to practice new things. And then when you go back to the things that you're good at, sometimes you take with you some of the new new ways that you paint, you know, especially going back and forth from landscapes to, say, still lifes or something like that. You really can grow as a painter when you mix up the things that you paint a little and stretch yourself out of your comfortable zone. Getting out of that comfortable zone is always a good idea. So now you can see what I'm working at is this next kind of, there's this layer, then there's this layer, and then there's kind of the beach foam layer. Right now I'm just sort of on that more, it's much lighter because there's way more air and bubbles in this wave near the front. So I'm just building up to that. So now I can get some of this white and really get it in there, and the paint underneath is kind of wet, so it kind of blends in really good. And I have been painting, of course, in oil for so long that I kind of paint the way I would, and it blends pretty well with the acrylic too. And then we'll get into the finer details, but I'm just kind of building those 3 layers first, and then we can get into the details. Okay, in the front of that wave, there's some real nice kind of blues in kind of almost a bit of a triangular shape between each wave. So just sort of, you can kind of work in some of those. What's fun about waves is, like, you can imagine the sound of the waves crashing on the beach while you paint. And some darker greens in there. And there's some real little kind of bubbles. I like my waves to look a little bit more like my flowers. You know, I like to paint kind of a looser style. So when I went on YouTube to find videos, they were all hyper realistic and kind of like just weren't, none of them were my style. And so I thought, how am I going to teach people to paint? And then I just said, you know, I just have to think of it the way I think of everything, you know, shapes, colors, values, and not think about, you know, just doing it the way I would paint anything. And then I sort of got more comfortable with it. Because if you look on YouTube, they look all the same too. So I was wondering, you know, I was overthinking it a little, like thinking, oh well, but my students would kill me if I painted the way these are. They would say, hey, what happened to our teacher? She's painting, I mean, no offense to Bob Ross, but it's kind of it's a little bit more of a style that's not my style. Nothing wrong with it. I like Bob Ross, but I'm just saying it's a whole different game. And I like to move around on my painting, and a lot of these paintings were kind of doing top to bottom style of painting, and I have to jump around. I just can't paint like that. Maybe I have like some sort of attention problem. Okay, so I'm getting some more of this raw umber, and I'm going to get some white, and like I did with the sky, just sort of add in some lighter sand. And if you look at the reference photo, it's not just one block of color. It's It's got darks and lights in there. It's a mix of color. And I'm just going to kind of keep it loose. And I'm using this kind of larger brush. It's called a Zen, Royal Atlantical Zen. It's a 1-inch brush. I think it's called a mop or something. But anyways, this is again a Michael's brush. I try hard to get supplies that are easy for you guys to go find, because that's another thing. There's a lot of teachers out there using stuff that, I mean, their students, I have no idea how they even find the type of supplies they're using. I'm gonna try to even, I find that a lot of people can't find this transparent brown oxide color, and this one kind of dried out. So I'm gonna even try to go with like using burnt umber instead in the next videos, just so it gets even easier to find the supplies. So I'm just kind of dabbing this in here. And I just want to leave it sort of like that. So there's some light and dark paint there. And now I want to go back to this area, has all like the foam on the beach. So could try going back to this sort of mixture I used in the initial, when I was putting that down, which was just some, I think it was some cobalt and white and a bit of that green. The cerulean, or no, the phthalo green, blue shade. And I'll see how that looks just to put in some of that foam. And using a brush like this, you can kind of dab the paint, and it almost leaves like, because the tip is rounded like this, it leaves sort of a wave shape. Kind of goes actually into the edge pretty nice like that. Now I'm going to get a little more white, because I didn't realize it was still fairly kind of dark. And then right where, especially where there's a lot more foam and waves, I'll put some real bright marks in there. And this brush, you can do it using, a square brush too. So I normally use a square brush. So I'll just sort of show you. I would just sort of angle it a little more. Put a little bit of blue in there just to show this little bit of the sky reflection in there. So go back to my tiny little brush, and I'm going to get a bit of this cobalt blue and kind of mix in a little bit of that phthalo green. So I have, and then there's a tiny bit of white, because that's what's like on the palette, but not much. I just want to go in now, and I can put some kind of that ocean wave in there, just to have like, show that texture coming in. Some waves coming in there. Like that. So far, this is sort of my second beach and wave scene ever, so I'm sort of just enjoying kind of doing it because it's sort of new to me and it's kind of fun. It's like the first time I tried painting a hummingbird, I was like, this is really awesome. Just to be able to paint a hummingbird was so exciting for me because I was afraid of doing it when you haven't done something. So now I'm just darkening in some of these areas that are darker. Might even need something to darken the paint a little because I have such a limited palette that I don't have a lot of dark, so you can always make it work. I'm using a little of this transparent brown oxide here just to darken that. And then there's a lot of more of a blue, so I'll use some cobalt here. And then you can detail it a little, like you can really have fun with your tiny little brush, just sort of detailing in, like look at that. Some of those marks. Really kind of add some of those edges in there. Who knows? This is sort of one of those things you just have to try. Just add some little wave marks there, kind of give it a little more, those little wavy bumps. And then, like I always tell everyone, if you don't like the shape that you got out of all that, you can always go back and change it, just get some more white and kind of fluff it up. So now I'm going to go just add some of those lighter marks there. Whoops. Sometimes you get that in acrylic, the water just kind of all of a sudden falls out of your brush like if you didn't dry it enough or something. So now I've got some more of those lighter waves that you see behind it. And in here, just kind of bring a few of those. There's some really good wave kind of shadows coming through there. And there's just some shaping I need to do. So I added some dark paint in there earlier, and then I just need to sort of, it's too rigid, so I'm going to go in and just sort of kind of soften that line a little, like that, just so it's not like so straight. And then some of the foam crosses over. As you get over here, you actually lose some of the water and some of the line. So I'm gonna just get some of that white paint. You can kind of watch your reference photo and kind of around here where these, whoops, I did it again. That water will get you every time. You just want to kind of start to really tweak the details a bit, so that kind of comes down. And you can go with a smaller brush too if you really want to get the fine bubbles coming down. And then as you get in here, it starts to really get splashy and wavy, so you want to come across. here with some of the those real some more of that next level up kind of detail. And then at the bottom, you have the wave crossing over kind of that water line. As you get down over here, the bubbles and everything get kind of less. And just kind of, there's a lot of splash, so I'm going to get some little dots just to show that. And there's a little bit of some splash up here where it's really flying up in the air. And then over here you get some really nice foam kind of coming down over the edge here. You know, kind of use some of that grayish and, you know, the blue, kind of not as bright as this, to just sort of carry that back here a bit, because it's not as bright as the bubbles here. Kind of adds like a little glimmer effect when you have those little dots of wave. And as you can see, well, maybe only I can see it at this point, the just kind of making more wave here. This is darkened a lot while we were talking, so I'm gonna go back and I'll add some lighter. Oops, too much water. So far, working on acrylic paper is not too bad. I can see it kind of getting a little bit curvy, the way watercolor paper does. So I'm not sure if I can, probably I can fix that, I'm not sure. So now I want to lighten this a bit. Lighten up the beach a little. So I've just got that white into that raw umber, and I'm going to do the same, just sort of it's probably a lot more, now there's more layers of paint on that beach too, so it won't dry as dark. This is a very simple, simple beach lesson, so it's it's kind of fun to try. I hope that you like it, and if you enjoy lessons like this, I have a Patreon channel. This is more of a beginner's level. We have lots of like really more in-depth painting lessons that will, you know, give you a lot more detailed teaching and instruction on my Patreon channel. But I do some of these fun ones that are just sort of a little bit quicker and, you know, easy to do. And I enjoy doing them. So if you have any ideas of other things you would like to try, please don't hesitate to leave in the comments below. Leave some ideas for me. I've been adding a lot of acrylic videos to my lessons, so that's why you've been seeing a lot of new acrylic when I have tons and tons of oil lessons on there. So yeah, I've been lately adding some acrylic just for fun. So let's see if this tape really comes off easy like they say it does. So far it's doing a good job. And again, this is just this Michaels painter's tape. So normal masking tape, I have used it, and it sometimes does rip the paper. So they sell this right over by the painting supply area. So here we go. We have our beach ocean wave painting, however you want to call it, seascape. And I actually am surprised. I actually like how this turned out. So I hope you like it, and I will get better and better at doing videos like this. It's just sort of, I'm kind of new to this. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to do the YouTube, you know, style that everyone does, but I'm going to just do my style, and I hope you like it and you learn something. That's the main thing, and be inspired to paint. And it's hard as you get older to find the time to just sit down and paint. So I hope that this inspires you. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.